So heading into Cortina, there are things that for lack of a better word, there's things that scare me. My experience in Beijing was a catalyst for indescribable growth. Most of the greatest moments of my career have happened since then. That's such a cool question. I think that my own values guide me to arrive in Cortina with an open mind and just like an overwhelming sense of gratitude that I get to be here after everything. Hi, everybody. I want to start off this episode by thanking you all for listening and supporting this fun new project, this podcast project. We're now several episodes into it, and I have been having the most amazing chats so far. It has been so cool to hear different insights from various people, and I'm really excited to continue down this road. Having said that, as you can imagine, we've been really right in the thick of racing, of all of the World Cup racing, in the depths of the winter, and really right now, like in the thick of Olympic prep. So there's been limited time in the last few weeks to bring a guest on for this episode. So this one's going to look a little bit different, but stay tuned because I think you're really going to like it. I want to talk a bit about Cortina, a bit about the Olympics, and kind of explore this what's the point theme as it relates to the Olympics more specifically. So this is going to be a little bit more focused on my own perspective since I don't have a guest today. I'm also going to answer a few fan questions. Again, everybody seemed to really like that on the last episode or 2 episodes ago. And you're going to get a little sneak peek into basically what goes on in my mind as I'm skiing a World Cup slalom run. So let's just get into it. So, Cortina, the Olympics. That brings up a lot of emotion. It kind of gives me the shivers right now, like thinking about, where I was last season at this point, trying to return to World Cup racing. Right at this period of time, I was trying to get prepared for World Championships and trying to be in a race mentality in giant slalom and not succeeding at that. And in slalom, it was getting better, but like going into the big event, being, on a comeback journey, a return from injury journey versus we're going to like take this full throttle. That was a unique experience. And the rest of the season last year, that was all a different position than I had ever been in. Now I flash forward to where I am, where our team is this year. It's pretty incredible to see, the progress and to be able to look back and compare. And, I just had my first World Cup podium in GS in over 2 years. Like, that's crazy because if you asked me last year, I might have said, I don't believe that I'll be on the podium again in GS. And I don't even know that I'll be in the top 30. It's just kind of crazy. But anyway, here we are heading into Cortina, heading into my 4th Olympics. And I don't know, I have some thoughts that are I'm just going to spew it out, I guess. Like I have thoughts about various mentalities. And honestly, I don't think there's a mentality that's right or wrong. Athletes bring in all different mentalities, all different shapes and sizes of energy and vibe going into the games. And there's a kind of mentality of being super positive and hyped and wanting to be involved in everything and soaking up every single moment. There's more of a mentality where you're really like kind of looking for peace, maybe looking for the calm, quiet, focused moments and, trying to live in that space. And I think that for me is probably a little bit more what I'm gearing towards this time around. There's also, just the full metal mentality. This can be super intense. it can be kind of tough to balance the enjoyment of such a unique event and an incredible event with the sort of underlying current of basically how important performance is when you have, medal or bust mentality. But I've also felt that kind of mentality in the past. And then there's just like this general sense of opportunity and gratitude for being in the position of competing in the Olympics at all. And I think pretty much every single athlete going into Milano Cortina probably has some feeling of incredible gratitude and excitement about the opportunity. And then there's just varying levels of nervousness and expectation around that. I already said that, but it will be my fourth Olympics. And they've all been wildly different. A big question that I've been asked over the course of this season is basically how my different experiences at all of the different Olympic Games have been, how they vary, how they compare. So honestly, I thought I'd get into that here because it's really quite deep. It's quite an in-depth answer. Sochi was my first Olympics in 2014, and I was young. I was 18 years old. I was excited, and I would say I was pretty naive to the bigness, the vastness of it. I really felt like ski racing is simple. It's a start and a finish line and some red and blue gates in between. And no matter where you do it, whether it's, a competition at 13 years old or a World Cup or an Olympic race, it's the same. I think I still believe that, but there's a little bit of color around that statement now because the things surrounding the event are kind of the variables that change. What happens between the start and finish is really simply make the best turns you can make. But then everything that happens before the start and after the finish that can certainly add color to an event, and that can change the way that it feels. It certainly changes the vibe of the Olympics. So in Sochi, I was somewhat of a favorite in slalom. But I don't really think that people had decided their expectations just yet. And it was really the following season after Sochi that the outside expectations had started to play a role in the way that I felt and how nervous I got. So in Sochi, it was so simple. I remember feeling like people had explained the Olympics like it's this big, unmanageable storm that's coming your way. And how are you going to weather the storm? And are you strong enough mentally to take it? And I kept thinking, what is everybody talking about? This is going to be so great. I'm going to go ski race. It's cool. Like, woohoo. I was watching the Hunger Games at that time, pretty much on repeat. So I was like, this is the best. I get to ski and watch the Hunger Games, like Katniss Everdeen. Oh my gosh. At Sochi, or I guess from winning that gold, I then learned how big of a role that this event can play in an athlete's career. And I think it kind of like slammed me over the head about like how much I was going to have to grow up because of it. All of a sudden, people had opinions that people who never paid attention, didn't know my name, didn't know what was going on in ski racing, didn't know my background. All of a sudden these people had opinions. And it wasn't just about how I performed in sport. It was opinions about, it becomes opinions about how you look, the clothes you wear, the way you laugh, really your entire personality. I mean, how you hug somebody on the stage of an interview, and if you hug one person and not the other, and then that becomes, it's just like everything you do is loaded. I think the world believes that there's a lot. I think people think that things are deeper than they are. in a lot of scenarios. There's obviously there's a lot of stuff that are just as deep as you think they are and really likely deeper. But in the scope of like winning a medal in sport and then going to talk about it in the media, usually is not that deep, with some exceptions. Absolutely. After Sochi, I pretty much immediately after I crossed the finish line, secured the gold medal, I got to hug my parents. And then it was like an immediate running the gauntlet of just probably 72 hours straight of interviews and celebrations and all of these incredible things. And when you're there, when I was there, I was like, whoa, I don't even know if my head is still attached to my body right now. It's a funny experience. You just have to ride the wave, right? And you enjoy what you can enjoy, and you're just like so extremely exhausted. And it's all just part of the experience. I wish this experience for every single athlete that gets the opportunity to compete at the Olympics. And, unfortunately, it only happens for a few. I wish for everybody that they could experience like the mind-numbing onslaught of, a post, the 72 hours post winning an Olympic medal, because it's just something you can't explain. You kind of survive it, and it's like the best, most exhausting period of your life. You've never been that tired in your life. That's the kind of feeling. But of course, that's not in a complaining way, because what are we complaining about? You know what I mean? I think my experience from Sochi and really what happened after led me into South Korea with my eyes much more open to what is possible if you do win a medal. I was, again, a favorite in the slalom event, but I wasn't really expected to win the GS. So winning gold in the GS was like, I think for a lot of people watching, it was a little bit out of left field. For me, I had been working so hard on my GS, and for the entire preparation pre-Olympics, after the last World Cup races in the January period, and then we had about 2 weeks of preparation, we went to South Korea, and I just trained day after day after day of GS, and I really revamped like my entire GS technique. It was very focused. We were like together with my coaches, my team, we were just so very much in the process of like kind of adjusting my GS skiing a little bit. It was like we just didn't even really come up for air. We were just pounding, like grinding. And I don't know. I mean, showing that skiing that I'd been working on for the 10 days prior to the Olympic GS race, that was one of the highlights of my entire career, just because we had been working so hard. It was also, it was the first time that I was ever in a position of winning an Olympic medal and having immediately a competition the next day, a competition in which I was one of the favorites. South Korea was, well, let's give you a little bit more backstory. The way that the environment was situated, it was a pretty long like transportation to get from our lodging to the race venue. And it was like a 15-minute drive, and then a security checkpoint, and then about 30-minute or maybe even 40 minutes of a gondola ride, like multiple gondolas to get to the very top of the mountain where the Alpine venue was located. So with the timing of everything, basically my wake-up call every single day of the Olympics in South Korea was at 4:30, 4:40 in the morning. And that was just set the alarm, selected every day, and just let that thing run. And it was really long days on the mountain because it was so far to get to the venue and then so far to get back. So most of the days I didn't get back from the venue for, until probably 4 p.m. at the earliest. So with kind of early mornings and long days, and then we kind of sprinkled in the weather, the wind. Usually you have 1 to 2 days between competitions. And it's for recovery, it's for training, it's for just like planning and logistics, it's from the organizers. But the way the weather played a role in Korea, we were doing competitions back to back to back. We were starting with the tech races, and each day the race was postponed. It was actually canceled. So we went all the way up to the race venue, inspected the course, waited, did our whole warm up, did our training, waited at the venue for several hours with delays and postponements until the race was canceled. And then it was rescheduled for the next day. And that process happened like 5 days in a row. So every morning was the early 4:30 a.m. wake up call, go through the whole motions. You're psyched to race an Olympic race. You're in the mentality, you're fully in race mentality. It's just minus the actual 2 race runs. You've done all your warm up, you've done all your training, you've done really most of the things that require that are physically demanding in the day. And then the race is canceled. And even in that case, we were still not getting back. I think it was the same for all the athletes, not getting back to our place until probably like 2 or 3 p.m. at the earliest. So these days were just exhausting with not a lot of feeling of productivity. The GS race finally took place, and the award ceremony for that GS race was the night before the slalom race. And the GS race awards was actually the last in the line. Every single night of the Olympics has like a list of award ceremonies from all the different sports, right? So the GS was the last prize giving or award ceremony to take place that evening. So that started at about 9:40 p.m. And then I had my 4:30 a.m. wake up the next morning. And all of this is to say, above all else, one thing which became abundantly clear to me in South Korea was that the Olympics are not designed for the comfort or to prioritize performance of the athletes and the teams competing. And they can't be, because this is such a huge show with an unfathomable amount of logistics to organize. Milano Cortina will be hosting just under 3,000 athletes from 90 different countries, competing across 16 different sports at 15 different venues over the course of about a 2-week period. It's just not really possible to organize an event like that and to prioritize performance, actually. So heading into Cortina, there are things that for lack of a better word, there's things that scare me. Some of it is sort of irrational. Some things are like really very real, kind of logistical concerns and things like that. most of it actually has nothing to do with sport. It is complete. It's like life oriented. It's things having to do with my family and the health of my family, and just things that are unrelated to the performance, unrelated to the Olympics entirely. But these are things that I just simply can't push into a box and forget they exist for 3 weeks. And I guess I'm only really bringing this up because that was sort of something that directly contradicted what I had grown up to believe. In the ideal world, it would be the most comfortable and performance-producing experience for athletes and teams, to really give everyone their best opportunity to perform at the highest level with an entirely fair competition setup across the board. But that's an impossibility even just at our individual World Cup races, let alone at an event of this magnitude. So once I realized that, I felt so silly for ever having expected anything else. But it was also like this realization that hits you. It's this epiphany, and you're like, oh, duh. That feeling like the Olympics are going to provide the perfect setup for you to be at your very best is not a realistic expectation. So let that one go. Really, the Olympics are truly about spirit, opportunity, camaraderie, inspiration, and the spectacle. And performance is included in there, of course. It's built in there, but it's certainly not the center. So this kind of brings me to Beijing. And I could dive so deep into this. We can go back a month before we even traveled to Beijing. But in the end, Beijing was an entirely different experience that pretty much drove the point home that I just mentioned. Just drove that point home even stronger, even deeper. You don't get to arrive at the Olympics with expectations set and then have those expectations met. And that's really challenging for a lot of athletes because we spend nearly all of our lives preparing and training for events and competitions with some kind of idea in mind of what to expect. My experience in Beijing was a catalyst for indescribable growth in my life, more outside of sport than anything, but that growth has impacted my life within sport in a way that I really just can't explain. I started working with a psychologist since the summer after Beijing, which really began with the goal to help understand and navigate my grief from my dad passing away, and really trying to understand how that can permeate every other area of your life. And for someone like me, who really generally excels in compartmentalization, management of expectations and training processes and rationality, and really dives into challenges kind of head on typically. I just had no real understanding or no real concept of how unpredictable and non-linear and unstructured grief really is. And when I was in Beijing, I had hoped to be able to put everything else in my life on pause and just power through the events. And I just couldn't. And it didn't show up in obvious ways. It didn't show up in extreme sadness on the anniversary of my dad's passing. It didn't show up, it didn't show up in emotional outbursts in the way I might have anticipated in my, linear, rational world. It was like we had a great day of training, and then that made me, that put me in an emotional state that like had nothing to do with the training, but I thought it did. And people, my team, they were confused about how to communicate with me. That time period is very, very blurry for me. I think it probably is for a lot of people, to be honest, because you also throw COVID in the mix. And it was just, honestly, this was something that I've been unpacking for years. To this day, still trying to understand certain pieces of Beijing entirely outside of results and performance. And I've learned so much about myself in that process. So again, catalyst for indescribable growth. When we kind of put that into the context of Cortina, heading into this Olympics, there are certainly things that scare me. And some of those things are kind of irrational. Some of them are very real. Most of these things have to do with family and the health of my loved ones and things that are entirely unrelated to sport. But I just simply can't push them into a box and forget that they exist for 3 weeks. And there's also, there's definitely a fear of disappointment. I said it there. I said it. There's a fear of disappointment, but there's also an overwhelming sense of excitement around the entire team of athletes that we're bringing into this event across all sports. But particularly in Alpine, we are riding on so much enthusiasm and spirit and amazing performances from the World Cup season to this point. And I find that energy so uplifting. And I also find that being here in this moment right now is a lot less nerve-wracking as a whole than how I expected it to be entering the season. There have been moments, and I'm sure there will be quite a few more moments with some pretty extreme nervousness. But overall, like, we're in the doing of it, and the doing of it is what I know. The anticipation is what's like more scary. And I have such an incredible support system. I think this goes for most athletes that you would ask. You enter the Olympics with your team and you're like a unit, you know. I'm so thankful for such an incredible support system. I'm so grateful to each one of them, family, friends, so many incredible fans and partners, and especially my coaches and my team who continue to work their asses off every single day with smiles and enthusiasm and no complaints. And they make me feel understood and acknowledged and safe. And that's like the most that I could possibly ask for. You arrive at events like a World Championships or the Olympics or any World Cup, really. You arrive to this point in your career with a village of people supporting you and such a strong team behind you. And changes happen with those teams. Coach shifts and like the people kind of come and go, but somehow like through the course of your career, you find a way to grow with the team around you. And you really, whether it's a team sport or an individual sport, you just cannot get to any level of success or any place without those people supporting you. And I often joke like with my mom and my coaches and Reagan and everybody, it's like Reagan's like pushing me out of the start and my mom's like receiving me in the finish, and the coaches are setting up the training and everybody, it's just like, I feel that the team around me is like carrying me with spirit and enthusiasm, and I could not do it without them. I was quoted in an interview recently, or over the summer, that it's just about not wanting Beijing to be a reason that I feel fear going into Cortina. And it sounds really great in my head. Like, yeah, of course, I don't want that to play a role in how I experience Cortina. But at the same time, I think it's unavoidable because there are so many eyes on the event. People who don't have any concept of what you do outside of these couple weeks. And I did experience a very dark side of that level of viewership because of Beijing. And I can't unexperience that. I can't strip it out of my head. I can't unsee or unhear comments and criticism, but I can take it as yet another example of what a multifaceted and outstanding journey the Olympics offer. And any single Olympics feels massive in the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like one journal entry or maybe a handful of journal entries in the story of your life. And no Olympics can decisively define an athlete. And since Beijing, my career has some of the greatest moments of my career, most of the greatest moments of my career have happened since then. So I'm kind of taking that knowledge with me as well. Again, indescribable growth, ideally, hopefully, I think. Like I want to paint this picture for you guys of the beauty of an Olympic Games. You've got athletes all there with this competitive spirit, right? And they're meeting each other and cheering for each other and hyping each other up. And it's so spirited and so human. Then the other side of it is sort of what seems to be perceived on the other side of the TV. And that can feel very non-human. You're supposed to be here to win and perform and to bring home a medal, to be perfect. And the truth is, that's also a very real piece of it. It's very oversimplified for the experience that all the athletes are actually having, but it's true. There's truth in showing up to an Olympics with the goal to perform. And there's just so much beauty in all of that. The performance side of it, the viewer side of it's inspiring as hell. You're willing to go to any length to live up to this event because you just gain so much energy by just simply existing in that space. And teammates, competitors, athletes from other sports, every single person there has a story, and every single story is so incredible. It's almost impossible to take in all of that information and all of the varying stories. And then you talk about the Paralympics right after. It's like, it is inspiring as hell. I have cried more often during the Olympics and Paralympics than any other time in my life, simply for other athletes' successes. And that doesn't even mean medals. It's like comebacks and shows of sportsmanship and all of the things that make you think, whoa, this is a really great world after all. And people are incredible and people are different. And that in and of itself is incredible. And that feels so necessary, especially right now. So my excitement around the games, around Cortina, is really in the opportunity of it. And any fear that I have is really connected to whatever external response that may or may not come from it. And there's really nothing to do about literally any of that besides keep skiing and keep trying to make good turns. And basically forget about the judgment and just keep putting one foot in front of the other when things feel heavy. And then there's going to be plenty of moments when things feel really, really light. And it's just so easy to exist. I think that my own values guide me to arrive in Cortina with an open mind and just like an overwhelming sense of gratitude that I get to be here. After everything, I still get to be here. So those are all of my thoughts that I have right now on my open journal dialogue with you all about the Olympics. And now I think I've like covered the varying experiences that I've had so far. Woohoo! If you're still with me, we're going to do a little Q&A now. I've had some fans submit questions, and so I'm going to basically just, respond to these questions that people have submitted. So thank you if you submitted a question and you're actually listening to this right now and you're still with me. Thank you so much for submitting questions, and I'm going to get right to that.
But first, a word for our partner, the Share Winter Foundation.
I know firsthand that no athlete gets here alone. Champions don't rise without support, coaches and teammates, and a whole community behind them. That's why I'm so proud to support Share Winter Foundation. They're giving thousands of kids the chance to click into skis or strap on a snowboard for the first time ever. For these kids, it's not about medals. It's about confidence and belonging and a joy for being in the snow. Every athlete has people in their corner, and every kid should too. Learn more at sharewinterfoundation.org/MickGives.
Hey, Mikaela. So I have a question for you. Since, as you can see here, we never see snow.
We never see
except for the occasional water. But my question would be, with as many different snow conditions that you and the tech team face from weekend to weekend, what steps do you take to adjust to those conditions? I'm just fascinated with your sport, and it would be interesting to see what all you guys go through. Thanks.
Thanks for the question. How we adapt to varying snow conditions. I think first of all, you have to kind of look at the equipment that different athletes are on. Every single ski company has kind of a specialty sort of condition. And I don't think it's purposeful. Every ski company tries to produce skis that can work on every condition, but it's kind of like in a Formula One car, you have different tires for different temperatures, weather patterns, slicks, whether it's raining or not. It's kind of similar, but we don't have as deep of a technology to be able to measure what is exactly right. So it really depends on the athlete's feeling. But generally speaking, each ski company has a specific kind of conditions that they really excel at, and then sort of a level, like a pyramid, and then like a level number of conditions that they're moderate at, and then probably something that's a weakness. And for my entire career, it's been trying to develop skis that address the weakness, which, for myself with atomic skis, my personal weakest condition is when it's not really hard snow, when it's, pretty much spring conditions and really deep ruts. And it's sort of similar. I think that's probably developed with myself and with atomic together, because I started racing on atomic when I was 12 years old and I haven't skied on anything else since. So that's probably like our most challenging conditions go hand in hand, and we've just been working on that. And over the years, we've had years where there's skis that we've developed that have been incredible in those kind of conditions. And in general, we excel when it's really quite icy. So that's one example. How we adapt to different conditions is really based on equipment testing, trying out different ski constructions. They're working tirelessly in the factories to produce different layerings within the ski, whether, where the metal is and the plexiglass and the wood and what kind of wood and what trees it comes from and what region of Europe or wherever in the world that wood might come from. And even the way that they piece that wood together, whether it's a full solid wood strip or if it's like interlocked together or if there's glue involved, all of those things play a role. So it gets pretty technical, and I couldn't really explain much to you beyond that. But we try different equipment, and then from just the athlete perspective, the more you train and the more you experience different course settings and different conditions, the more adaptable you are to those things. So it's really about exposure. And on race day, it boils down to sort of mentality and your ability to remember the exposure that you've had in recent months or even over the years. Sometimes I'll see a race, some conditions in a race, and I'll think back maybe even 3 years ago or 4 years ago to a time where I was able to handle those conditions. And I might actually remember certain technical cues I was thinking about at the time that might help me today. So all the experiences you've had over the course of years and years and years play a role as well. So, they're signing Winter Olympics. That's so cool. Thank you guys for cheering. That's so cool. Thank you. Sorry, I'm speaking to you like I'm on the phone. I'll have to go back and study this and see if I can learn how to sign Winter Olympics. That's so cool. I'll go back and study that.
So, hello, Mikaela. My question is, because we've seen the first 3 slaloms of the season, it looked a bit effortless, you were a step ahead of everyone. You weren't forcing your ski. And then in Semmering, a little bit more difficult. However, it didn't look on the limit. You mastered it and you won the race. However, in Kranjska yesterday, you were ragged because Camille rose to your level. So my question is, when do you decide in these moments when someone rises to your level, when before you were comfortably a step ahead, when do you decide, okay, I'm going to accept defeat and I'm going to protect my points, my overall lead? Or you have an ego to defend and you're going to push the maximum like in Kranjska. When do you decide, okay, it's time to protect, or okay, I'm going to defend my position as the legend?
This is such an intriguing question. And I think it's honestly something that I've battled through the course of my career. Is what I want always, only ever, what I want is to ski the very fastest that I can in any given condition and to just match the condition with my very best, fastest skiing. Having said that, I also want to make it to the finish. And sometimes my skiing, over the course of my career, I've had races where I don't necessarily put in the entire risk that I wanted to. I didn't ski the very fastest I possibly could because there's something to consider in protecting points and earning as many points as you can. And if you don't finish, you don't earn any points. Having said that, the purest way to ski is as fast as you can and the best skiing you can. You can't just like decide in the start, I'm going to ski super duper fast. Not for me. I think maybe some athletes actually are able to just want it and to will themselves to ski faster. For me, I can't just stand in the start and say, oh, I really want to win this race. Go for it. I have to be super methodical. I have to be very focused on my approach to the turn, the way that I accelerate, all of these different, like really focus on proper skiing and proper turns and the way that you play with the forces of gravity and your skis and the mountain and all of these things. And that's how I ski fast. So I can't just show up on race day and say, I'm going to just ski faster. And when you think about Kranjska Gora, Camille was, oh my gosh, she lit up the mountain. And I was like, I've got to throw some of my, strategy turns out the window because these courses are just so fast, so straight. There's no speed control set into the turn shape of the course. So now it's just about who can tolerate a higher ground speed with minimal errors or fewer errors or maybe less costly errors. And I would say neither Camille nor I made any big mistakes on our runs, but the very, very small little mistakes where you get thrown off just a little bit in that kind of course where there's no speed control, you just have to tolerate that better. And basically it's like pure athleticism. And she showed greater pure athleticism in Kranjska Gora. And I was just totally in awe of that. But I wanted to match that the best I could. And it was like, who cares? Who cares if I don't finish? And probably some of that mentality is because I was over 100 points ahead in the slalom title. And in theory, I could afford to mess up and make fewer points in the race for the globe. But what I wanted was to just, earn the skiing or match the way that Camille was skiing. That doesn't really answer your question, but I think the goal is always to ski as fast as you can. And sometimes the factors of wanting to finish and wanting to earn points, that those can certainly play a role when I would not want them to.
Hi, Mikaela. It's Anna from Madrid. I love the relationship you have with your mother, not only as a athlete coach, but also as friends. You've mentioned before how important that friendship is for you, and I think that's really special.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that in other ski racers too, like Trinka. And I think it's clearly a successful model. This is my question. It's maybe a bit personal. If you had kids in the future, would you like them to be ski racers? And if so, would you like to be their coach? Thank you and good luck for this season and the Olympics. Love you.
Oh my gosh. You are amazing. What a great question. And gosh, some people are so well spoken. I think I would love my kids to do whatever they want to do. I will not push them into ski racing. Alex and I have talked about this a little bit. I think we will do our best to naturally provide opportunities for our kids to do what they would like. I would love them to do as many different sports as they would like to do, or practice as many different arts as they would like, to learn some musical instruments, to learn as much as they possibly can. And this really stems from the way that my parents raised me. It was just to provide as much opportunity as possible to explore the things that you like. And if my kids do want to pursue skiing, I don't think I would hold them back either. But I don't know that I could really be a great coach. I think I would recruit my mom to be their coach. My mom is a really great coach. She just is. And she is my best friend. And I love that you acknowledge that that's a relationship that can be sometimes challenging to balance, but being able to travel the world and do this sport and pursue success in this sport together with my mom. It's been one of the most beautiful things of my career, above any medal, above anything else, is just to be able to do something like this together and learn these things together is just incredible.
Hi, Mikaela. Thank you so much for the opportunity to ask you something. My question is, if you could go back in time, what would you tell your younger self before your very first World Cup race? I wish you all the best. Bye.
I don't know that I would tell myself anything before my first World Cup. I mean, I think it's such a good question. And the premise of this question is that if I knew back then what I know now, could I do it better? Could I do it different? Could I handle it better? And I just think like things in life present themselves in the way that it's supposed to happen. I mean, I wouldn't have learned the things that led me to know what I know now if I knew what I know now back then. I don't think that makes any sense, but the idea is like you've got to go through the process of learning those things in the way that they exist. Otherwise, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I went into my first World Cup races like ignorance is bliss, kind of, and wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and thinking that maybe I had a chance to win. Girl, it's like, but that's part of what makes me me. And yeah, that's all I got. Thank you for the question.
Hi, Mika. I'm a very huge fan of you. I'm watching every race and cheering for you. My question is, how can you actually motivate yourself every day? And how can you push yourself again each day? Congratulations to everything you have already done. That's incredible. I wish you all the best for the rest of the season and good luck. You are incredibly impressive. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Wow. How you motivate every single day? I am just motivated so much by skiing itself and wanting to make better turns. And when you get closer to this ideal, perfect skiing technique or really good form, when you get closer to it, it feels like just you can't stop. You have to keep going. You have to get around the next corner. You have to make 3 more turns that are that powerful. It's just such a beautiful feeling. And I think that in and of itself is motivating.
So, since you are a big tennis fan, I'm asking, when are you coming to some tennis tournaments? Like, aren't you supposed to say Iga Swiatek? Like,
I cannot wait to come to more tennis tournaments. I've been to the US Open. I've been to the French Open. I would love to go to Wimbledon someday. I've been to some ATP tournaments. I would just love to watch more tennis live. It's such a wonderful sport. It's so much fun to watch on TV for me as well. And yeah, I would love to watch more tennis live. It's only challenging with the schedule because I'm already traveling like 9 months, 10 months out of the year. So it just gets challenging to fit it in, but we're trying to make it work that I can go watch Iga.
Hi there, this is Pia. I'm from Germany, and I want to know, do you have a favorite sunrise that you witnessed and have locked away in your memory? Because I imagine you must have seen so many beautiful ones throughout all the training sessions and race days in your life. I am a morning person myself, and I celebrate and love sunrises in general. So, yeah, I just wonder, Anyway, I wish you all the best and fingers crossed for the upcoming races and the Olympics. I'm going to cheer you on from Berlin. Bye.
Thank you for the question. My favorite sunrise, I think there's probably two. In New Zealand, there are the most incredible sunrises. And when we're getting up early for training days and you're on the mountain, you get to see this like sun rising over the peaks and valleys from across the way. And that's pretty beautiful. And then the other would be in Maui. The sunrises and the sunsets in Maui are something really special for me, probably because when I grew up going there with my family, and it's a very nostalgic place for me. So, watching the sunrise, particularly if you go to the top of Haleakala, to the observatory, and you watch the sunrise from there, it's like kind of a touristy thing to do, but it's a pretty spectacular sunrise. And that holds a special place in my heart.
Hi, Mikaela. I'm Samra from Austria, and I'm such a big fan. I think I watched every ski World Cup race since I'm like 5 years old, and I'm super impressed. And since I'm an entrepreneur and a founder by myself, I think it's even more impressive what you do. And for me, you're such a big idol because you show me, not only me, of course, you show the world what is possible, and that there are simply no limits. So I think it's so cool what you do. And if I could ask you one question, it would be, what would you tell your younger self? So what would you tell 18-year-old Mikaela with your experience now? Would love to hear your answer to this question and wish you all the best. And I am so thankful that you do what you do because it's a crazy inspiration for me and for so many other people out there. Bye-bye.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. This is always such a challenging question. What you would tell your younger self is like, I want to say, believe in yourself. I want to say, have more confidence. You know, it's going to be great. You're going to do great. But in the end, I needed to experience all these things as they came. And I think you could ask this also about what I would want to know now from my future self. And I don't know that I want to know anything. Some things are just, I would either want to know everything or nothing and just figure it out as I go. So now we're going to just try something a little different. You guys just give me feedback on whether it's cool or not. But I'm going to watch my second run from Spindlerův Mlýn, Špindlerův Mlýn, and just, I don't know, react to it. We'll figure out the name of it. Maybe it'll be like in my head. I don't think anybody really wants to be in my head though, because it's a little bit messy up in there. But let's just watch my run together and I'll just see what comes up. It was a hectic run. It was a great run. It was a great run, but it was a hectic run. Oh my gosh. This run was crazy because I was trying a ski setup that was giving me a ton of power, and it was like a bucking bronco ride to try to sort of manage it. And there was this big combination that was really tricky coming up, and I got through there. It's coming up right now. It was just like complicated, but also fine. It was a really cool way to set that because the surface supported it, but I got through the combo. I was like, oh my God, I made it. And then I got onto the flat. I was like, girl, you better go. So I got onto the flat part. I was like hammering, barely hanging on for the ride. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, all of a sudden this was over. All of a sudden the run was over. I'm like, hello. Yeah. Sometimes, honestly, when I get through the finish of races, I'm like, what just happened? This is insane. I don't know how I don't know how that just transpired. I'm very thankful for it, but like I couldn't tell you what happened. And then I think a little bit more about it and I realized like, oh, I had a bubble here and then I was really stepping on it there. But that combination, it was a Austrian corset, and this kind of trick combination just required so much focus because I really wanted to take a lot of speed into it, but I wasn't sure how I would be able to react, like if I would be athletic enough to react and stay on the course if I took the speed into it. And then I kind of made like a little bit of an error right before that. So then in the end, I had kind of less speed going into the combination anyway. And when I came out on the other end, I was literally like, are we good? We're good. We're still racing. Go, 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 go. And then the gate broke next to me. And I was like, what was that? And then just keep going. And then all of a sudden you're in the finish. I'm like, did we do it? Was that good? I don't know. Those are kind of the things that go through my head. It's a little hectic. It's a little hectic up in there. Okay. Thank you all for joining me on this very lonesome podcast today. I'm very thankful again for everyone's support in this process, this project of podcasting. And I'm really excited to have some amazing conversations coming up in the future. And just thank you for bearing with me on this episode today, where it was just a lot of me talking. Thank you so much for that. Cheer loud, guys, because we're doing it. We are going to the Olympics and we're doing it, and just cheer really loud for all of my teammates and myself at the games this year. And thank you so much again for all of your support.